and then you went on to set up a little company called GradGuide. Could you tell us quickly about that journey?
26 years of age, I think I was. We took on 2 million equity investment to take the business full time. So that's kind of how I meandered my way into setting up my own company.
Yeah, could you tell us a bit about Solidroad and what they do?
Solidroad is an AI-powered training platform for customer-facing teams. I think with like the age of AI and the latest and greatest in generative tech, you can actually put an AI coach in everyone's pocket. So that's what we're very excited by.
And in terms of AI-driven sales and support kind of training and tools, is it going to enhance salespeople capabilities? Is it going to replace some people? How do you see it?
Like, I'm a big believer in that it's going to enhance, but don't get me wrong, there will be like automation along the way.
What's the vision then for the next 3 to 5 years for Solidroad?
The vision is personalized training at scale. I think the next 3 to 5 years will be staying in the customer-facing role domain.
Mark, thanks for coming on to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Good to finally get you.
Yeah, no, I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, we'll jump straight in. Obviously, you worked for companies like Intercom, Chargify, and then you went on to set up a little company called GradGuide. Could you tell us quickly about that journey?
Yeah, so even kind of give a bit of background, I studied business in Trinity, and straight out of college, like there was a bit of pressure. Everyone studying business wanted to go into finance, accountancy, Big Four, etc. I knew that wasn't for me. I was quite involved in the Trinity Entrepreneurship Society, wanted to work in startups, had the false pretense that I could be the next Mark Zuckerberg straight out of college.
Yeah.
Definitely wasn't the case. So I knew then that I wanted to work in a fast growing startup, ideally like an indigenous Irish company where decisions were being made in Dublin. Earmarked a few companies, but really like Intercom was definitely top of the list. So kind of made it my mission after college to try land a job there. Was quite fortunate that kind of knew someone in there that helped me make that transition from college to company, and they kind of provided mentorship, support with the interview process, etc., which helped my chances to land an early kind of sales job as a BDR in Intercom in Dublin. So that was something that I really remember being quite serendipitous, how I landed my first job in tech. And then all my friends who then worked in finance or accountancy who have now moved into tech have kind of been like, how did you kind of spot that early on? So I do look at it as a bit of luck, more so than anything else. So I think the reason I tell that story is because it kind of feeds into how GradGuide started. But really, I worked in Intercom, loved it. I was there for Series C and D fundraisers, hyper growth. I remember going in on a Monday and seeing like 50 people on board. It was like, I thought it was normal, but like definitely now seeing the other side of trying to set up a company, how non-normal that is.
Yeah.
Worked there as a BDR and as account executive, loved it. Kind of have loads of people that I still stay in touch with that kind of continue to be kind of mentors for me to this day. Some even investors, etc. But left Intercom to join Chargify. Really wanted to get experience in a managerial role. So it was actually funny that Intercom paid for like an app called like BetterHelp or something like that. It was kind of like a coaching app.
Yeah.
And I remember I said that I've even kind of from a young age, I always wanted to work for myself and start up a company. And I remember the woman telling me that it's like, okay, if you want to start up a company, you need to get managerial experience. You've never had that. So like basically something they paid for almost pushed me out the door. But it was that quite, once again, random that the CEO of Chargify reached out to me on LinkedIn, sent me a fairly cryptic message on LinkedIn being like, hey, if you want to work somewhere where you can make a bigger impact, let me know. And had a few conversations with him and set up the EMEA base here in Dublin for Chargify, which was also a lot of fun. So grew that team to about 12 people across sales, support, customer success. And then that business got bought by private equity Battery Ventures, still going now as Maxio, kind of rebranded with one of their competitors. But yeah, I think that was kind of my first experience of kind of managing people. And then it was really throughout the time at Intercom and both Chargify, I was working on GradGuide, like you mentioned, which was very much a passion project. I just did it in my spare time. I built a simple like website that would connect students and graduates with mentors a few years ahead of them on the career ladder to help them find their first job. As I said, it was something that really helped me land my job in Intercom. So it was just a few friends basically who were working as account executives in other tech companies to begin with. There'd be people who would be wanting to work as BDRs or AEs in tech companies in college that didn't know a lot about it. They'd meet like once a week. Even pre-COVID, it'd be like meet for a coffee, which was interesting. You don't really see that as much anymore. But they would just help them from everything from like what the job entailed, the interview process, the biggest thing really was like we didn't actually solicit this by it was more accidental, but like they would like push for referrals because they get on with the person and be like, you know what, they'd be actually a great fit for my company. My company's hiring. So they'd like refer them in. So yeah, like really it was kind of strange again that we never planned to monetize that business, set up with a few friends, like I said. And it was during COVID that we put more time into it because we spare time in the evenings. So we kind of put like a plan in place where we'd meet like 3 times a week over Zoom to like chat through planning. And one of us would take like the mentor side of the business, the other would take the grads, the other would take the companies. And once again, it was weird that like a company approached us that was looking to hire early career talent, and they were like, "Come across you guys. Do you have a talent pool readily available that we can have access to?" And we did. We had like 1,000, 2,000 grads. So we're like, "Okay, cool." Yeah, they were willing to pay, and through that, we got a few early paying customers. One of them was a company called Amidas, who were kind of part of Clune Technology Group, and Terry Clune's Clune Technology Group was Taxback Group at the time, and got intro to Terry, and he said like he'd like to make an investment to take the business kind of full time, which was very exciting. So 26 years of age, I think I was. We took on 2 million equity investment to take the business full time. So that's kind of how I meandered my way into setting up my own company
Yeah.
full time.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the story of like from college to startup
Yeah.
GradGuide to begin with.
If you like the podcast and you're enjoying this episode, we really appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. Very good. Do you say then a lot of it was down to, as you mentioned there, luck, timing, being opportunistic? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Like I think you're kind of being quite purposeful in it. Like as I said, like I was very like open. I used to say to people that like I want to work for myself. I want to like set up my own company. Sure you were kind of the same, but set up
Yeah.
your own business as well. It was kind of ingrained in me. My dad's worked in large corporates his whole life, and he was just basically like saying to me that like really to make a big impact, you kind of want to work for yourself. So and my mom's worked in a load of kind of small local businesses like boutiques and stuff like that. So and then on the other side of the family, really like my grandparents, like my granddad had a chain of pharmacies, quite successful. So I think
Yeah.
that was kind of like ingrained in me early that I wanted to be an entrepreneur per se. But then I think it's one thing saying it and it's the other thing doing it. So I think like every decision I made in my career was like with that end goal of wanting to work myself. So like Intercom was very intentional because I knew I'd get to learn the inside of like a fast growing tech startup. Chargeify once again. I was even throughout my interview process with the CEO, Paul Lynch, who's an entrepreneur himself and has kind of like led multiple businesses, successful businesses. I said to him on the interview, I was like, this for me is like a 2 year stint and then I'm going to go out on my own. And he was like, well, if you do a 2 year stint and it works out, I'll be one of the first people to back you. So like was very
Perfect.
open in that conversation. So no, it's definitely luck. But kind of sometimes the luck kind of comes out of unusual places when you're kind of
Yeah.
actively looking.
And doing managerial roles and then obviously going into a founder role, would you say you're a natural leader, a natural salesperson at the same time?
I don't know. I think I'm like a player coach,
Yeah.
like lead by doing rather than like I don't think I'm the best manager per se. I definitely have my
Okay.
flaws
Yeah.
there, but from a sales standpoint, I like in GradGuide, like I led sales, and in Solidroad again, like it's very much founder led sales. So like feel like you come full cycle, like you get to a nice lofty title like regional director at Chargeify, only to go back to being a BDR in your own company really because you're doing everything like you're doing lead gen from then you're managing the whole deal, customer success, customer support. So I very much feel like I'm an IC again, even though there's five
Yeah.
people in the company.
Yeah, yeah. And obviously then founding Solid Road for actually the listeners who might not have heard of them. Yeah, could you tell us a bit about what Solid Road and what they do?
Yeah. So Solidroad is an AI powered training platform for customer facing teams. Really, the vision is to provide personalized training at scale. It was one thing I noticed firsthand in GradGuide. Was the impact of that one-to-one coaching and mentorship and how impactful it was on people's careers, but very difficult to scale that one-to-one human component. The unit economics just don't stack up. So when we got to a point where we had like 30,000 students in our database, we only had 300 mentors. So we had to be very content focused, like build out video tutorials and very much became like a one-to-many training platform
Yeah.
and mentorship platform. I think with like the age of AI and the latest and greatest in generative tech, you can actually put an AI coach in everyone's pocket. So that's what we're very excited by. So currently what the tool does is it allows sales and support reps to practice realistic conversations with an AI customer or prospect and then receive real-time performance feedback tied to custom scorecards. So it's kind of like a simulation training platform or like an AI role play training platform. That's kind of where we started. Kind of tool has branched out into more of like an AI first LMS for sales and support teams.
Yeah.
So you can upload training materials, you can upload a document, a URL, it can automatically create a course, it can create simulations like practice conversations, and then we're also now scoring live conversations as well. So kind of how we see the next few months going is scoring live conversations, be that like intercom live chats or gong call recordings, finding skill gaps for your sales and support team, and then creating personalized training plans on the back of that. So say someone's lacking empathy in their conversations, then
Yeah.
being able to create like a custom lesson course and corresponding simulation to practice and improve, and then report all that back to your CRM. So I think where everyone's kind of zigging at like AI to replace sales and support, we're like zagging, whereas like no, like there will be humans left, and we want to be that tool that augments the human.
Yeah, and enhances it
Yeah,
really for the sales training. And I know working in sales, how difficult it is, especially with junior salespeople, unless they have a manager who's listening in on every call and obviously providing them with real time feedback.
yeah,
Especially now in a world where a lot of people are working remotely. So
yeah.
no, that's brilliant. And from your time down at GradGuide, are there any learnings now that you can apply to Solidroad?
Yeah, I think yeah, it's a good question. Like the major learnings really, I think and I think given the times it was 2021, we hired really fast. We got to like 20 people at one point when we were still figuring a lot of stuff out. I think we've been myself and Patrick, we've had different founder journeys, myself and my co-founder Patrick, that we've kind of learned from. So yeah, I think one thing is like not putting people at problems and actually like seeing how far we can get with as few people as possible. And really like we haven't found product market fit fully yet. So being able to get to that point before we put fuel on the fire, raise more money if that might be the case, or hiring more people. So I think that's one thing that I probably learned that was a bit more intentional about that. It's like, can we actually keep it a bit more tight for longer? I think now with AI, like even our engineers, they're using stuff like Cursor that can do the work of like 3 engineers, and we're using a lot of AI automation to like generate leads for us, so we don't need as much like time kind of doing outreach ourselves. So yeah, I think that's one big learning. I think.
Wow, okay. And in terms of being a second time founder, do you feel like the time span from idea to execution now is a lot quicker when it came to Solid Road as compared to Grad Guide?
No, I wish. So I actually met someone recently up, and they were like, "Is it easier or harder second time around?" And I was like, "Honestly, I think it's harder." Like, I thought I had this like false pretense that I'd learned loads, and I find like I wouldn't make the same mistakes, and there was definitely mistakes that I made again. I think one thing that I take for granted in Grad Guide is that I had done it for a year or two, like bootstrapped, like in my spare time, that we kind of figured out a load of stuff before we raised money against that business.
Yeah.
Whereas with Solid Road, it was like Mark and Patrick with a pitch deck raising 1.5 million to try figure it out. So like there was a lot of times where like literally Patrick was like writing the first lines of code. We had nothing, and I'm just doing customer discovery to find out what people actually want.
Yeah.
So I think that like 0 to 1 felt a lot longer this time around than it did
Mm,
before.
yeah. Do you find on the flip side of that, having the network of investors and kind of mentors makes things slightly easier?
Yeah, definitely from an investment standpoint, like Patrick had done Y Combinator before in his previous startup, had a good investor network through that. I had an investor network from Grad Guide. So like definitely raising from business angels and family offices and stuff like that was actually yeah, easier than I thought it would be, which is great. And I think as well, getting early design partners, we benefited from working with similar companies before, or like people that I had worked with in Intercom were now heads of sales or VPs of sales at tech companies that I
Yeah.
could lean on them, be like, hey, will you test this tool out and give us feedback, etc. So I think it definitely helped for that sample.
Okay. And being kind of in the early days, do you find that you're getting better responses from certain industries, or is it, B2B SaaS, or are there certain, elements that you're like, right, these are definitely our buyers, or could it be used in a wide range across, call centers, whatever it may be?
Yeah, yeah, it really is a wide range, and we kind of like keep thinking we figured it out, and then we're like, no, we haven't. So, for example, we went first after B2B SaaS because that was kind of pattern matching to what I knew. The tool probably wasn't ready for B2B SaaS. Also, at the time, like people were going through lots of rifts and redundancies, and enablement budgets were being cut, so probably wasn't the best time to introduce a new training tool in the mix. So didn't get much traction there. Then we went after large sales and support orgs. So like you mentioned, large call centers, contact centers. Definitely a strong fit there, but just slower to move on things. So you're like going into enterprise sales cycles that are taking a long time. Now, thankfully, we've come through a lot of them. We've got some great logos off the back of it. But now we're still like, we see like a lot of traction in like the SMB mid market, and it is like B2B SaaS, IT services, but like that kind of technology vertical in particular. I think it's just because they're quicker to move on new technology than anything else. But that said, it's still a mixed bag. Like we've got Ryanair using the tool. We've got Brown and Brown, who are a large
Yeah.
motor insurance group over in the States. So basically, anyone who has a large sales and support org and has lots of conversation volume, we can definitely help.
So in terms of Solidroad, have you received any unexpected feedback from early users, and how has that feedback really shaped the product?
Yeah, like I think we've really invested heavily in like this scorecard component. Like a lot of people, what we didn't actually think was how much people would value the feedback. I think just people hate giving feedback, so when they can actually outsource it to an AI doing it instead. But really, the benefit of the AI giving the feedback, what we've noticed is like, say, if you have a sales manager, support team lead reviewing 10 conversations, and you've got 10 different managers reviewing them, like they're all going to give different scoring tied to a scoring rubric that they might use. So it's like very subjective in nature. Yeah, so I think one bit of feedback was just really on like doubling down on that scorecard component, pulling in examples from the transcript of where people said something right or said something wrong. And it's kind of become the flywheel over time. What we found is like we've invested heavily in that early days. The scoring is really accurate. Like it has like 95 to 100% accuracy, but also across different languages as well, which is really exciting. So we have people using it in French, German, Spanish, and being tested by large teams that we expected being like, you know what, like, will this be good enough? But it has been. So that's one area that we didn't think would be as impactful as it is. And like that feedback coaching from the scoring has been yeah, a bit of an unlock. So yeah, that was one thing we didn't expect.
Okay. And in terms of AI driven sales and support kind of training and tools, the question on everyone's lips and what they're always asking is it going to enhance salespeople capabilities? Is it going to replace some people? How do you see it?
Yeah, I think like I'm a big believer in that it's going to enhance, but don't get me wrong, there will be like automation along the way. So I think that for support, for example, like tier one conversations are going to be automated away by the likes of Fin and Intercom, Finbot. Like no longer will people write in asking for like how to reset their password or simple enough queries like that. Likewise with sales, a lot of entry level qualification stuff will be fully automated away by an AI. Like if you're ringing in to schedule an appointment with a doctor or something like that, I think that'll be taken by like a AI voice bot booking in that appointment. So I think like the kind of entry level tier one stuff will be automated away. But I think what that means is like customer support reps, for example, will only have difficult conversations. That means that it's going to be tougher than ever. Like, I mean, you're talking about the likes of a company like Airbnb, and you have escalations to the point where like someone's like robbed my Airbnb or something like that. Like, that's not something that you want to have a person take as their first conversation in a live environment. Like, you want to be able to practice that and ensure that you're ready before you hit those live channels and ensure that you're fully trained with dealing with those situations. Likewise with sales, like you want a new rep to take like 100K kind of lead that's come inbound, or yeah, you don't. So it's like like I think the big thing that we're excited by is like the being able to use AI to kind of coach, improve in a risk-free environment to ensure that when they're actually in live channels, you're not burning CSAT, you're not burning sales leads. So that's where I see the future of AI. I think it's really going to be an enabler, or so
Okay.
I hope
Yeah.
anyway.
In terms of Solidroad, then are you developing your own AI, or is it basically using different AI features from other companies?
Yeah, yeah, no, great question. So we're basically just using the base layer intelligence of OpenAI right now, but we have been like LLM agnostic, so we can swap in Claude, Anthropic, like Llama, whatever it might be. But right now, what we're having most success with is OpenAI's 4.0. So that's the base layer intelligence, and then we use retrieval augmented generation, where we can, if you upload content into the system, it's all contained to your workspace, and we can go search for that to help kind of train it further, and then just like structure prompts as well, so prompt engineering. So that's been working well right now. I think it was a decision we made early on. It's like we don't want to bet against OpenAI that have unlimited cash. It's like, I think if you look at all the startups that have died on the back of betting against OpenAI, Yeah, everything like even the latest like voice to voice API is going to kill a lot of startups as well. So we're like betting on OpenAI getting better and these LLMs getting better. It's a good thing for us. And then just being really good at like the RAG and the prompt engineering is what we
Hmm.
think will be the future.
Yeah. And obviously, you're on the ground. You can see how AI is transforming the sales and support kind of training landscape. Are there other companies that you're keeping an eye on and you like what they're doing?
Yeah, so I think one thing that I've noticed anyway is that with AI and like generative AI, there's definitely massive opportunities for startups like ourselves, but the incumbents have the distribution advantage. So like we're always looking at the big players as well. So like companies like WorkRamp, Seismic, MindTickle on the like LMS front, like your Gongs, etc. on the kind of conversational intelligence to see if they're investing in this kind of stuff as well because they have the customers already. So like that's one thing to note that we're always keeping an eye on that. And then there are some kind of smaller startups in the space as well that are doing quite well, a few based in the Bay Area in San Francisco. So um, that's why my co-founder Patrick has actually moved over to San Francisco, really just to be close to what's happening because all the latest tech is really coming out of San Francisco. So being ears to the ground, we kind of missed out on a few things early on that could have been huge unlocks with different kind of third party providers we could have used. So there are smaller companies, but I'm not going to give them the airtime today.
Okay, well, at least you sent one man over to kind of keep an eye on
Yeah.
emerging trends.
Yeah.
Between you then and your co-founders, what are some of the biggest challenges you've encountered building Solid Road from the ground up?
Yeah, the biggest challenge has definitely been security and compliance. So it's something that we've had to invest in heavily, like really early on. That's something that I never expected, never been something that I've had to do in the past. So, like, yeah, especially when you're touching customer conversations, companies can be very, yeah, like strict and paranoid about like how you're using those conversations, etc. So, really having to invest in ISO 27001, SOC 2 Type 2, and really like putting security to the forefront of everything we do. We're very upfront and transparent about like what we use and why we use it, etc. The different third party vendors we use. And it's something that has been a massive unlock. At the start, it was like slow and arduous to get through large security questionnaires to say how we're using the kind of different data, etc., names, emails, customer conversations. But now I think, yeah, I think people have come more around to using AI in their workflows, which is great. But then also just like having that check mark of approval to say like, we use Vanta to like do all this, and we have like a security hub on Vanta that hosts all our certifications, like shares all our kind of privacy policy, etc. And like I can see how many times that's been viewed by procurement teams, security leads, CTOs, but just having that in our back pocket and other companies not having that at the same size that we're at has been really helpful, but definitely a challenge that I never thought about. I remember like our first customer we closed, we'd like verbal agreement, everything ready to go, and just about to kind of send over the DocuSign, and like their head of security is like, "Yeah, if you can just send over your ISO certs and your SOC
God.
2." I was like, "We don't have it. What are we gonna do?" Absolute panic stations.
Yeah.
So we managed to get there at the end, but like it was very difficult. So yeah, I'm glad we have all that behind us now. Thank you.
Yeah. So just learn by doing. Yeah. Are there any, as you mentioned, keeping an eye on emerging trends within AI? Like, how quickly can you see a trend or a feature and then integrate that into the product roadmap? Or are you kind of keeping quite consistent on the product roadmap from, day one?
Yeah, no, it's a great question as well. It was like, yeah, we kind of have our kind of product roadmap is based off, I don't know, maybe like a third, a third, a third. Like a third is like planning what features we want to build for the next sprint. That might be a monthly sprint or a quarterly sprint. And then a third is like user customer feedback and key features that they want. And then the third is like deal unlockers. So it's like if we actually go head to head with a competitor, or if we're speaking to a deal and they're like, hey, can you turn on SSO, for example, something that we had to build that is like, okay, what's the kind of, what do we deprioritize? Okay, maybe we can't ship that feature on time, but if we build SSO with Okta and the different kind of SSO providers, then we can close this deal. So I think that's how it's been done right now. There's definitely a better way to do it. Like we are definitely all over the place.
Yeah.
But yeah, really prioritizing like closing deals and keeping customers happy,
Yeah.
and then what we think would be good as well. But it's normally the latter that gets priority.
Yeah, yeah. No, as you say, it's kind of keeping the customers happy first, and then spinning as many plates as you can. What's the vision then for the next 3 to 5 years for Solidroad?
Yeah, as I said, I think the vision is personalized training at scale. I think the next 3 to 5 years will be staying in the customer facing role domain. It's one thing that I've learned from GradGuide that we tried to do too much. Like we probably had 90% of our volume and customers was for like BDO roles, and like 10% or like 5% customer support, and then like 5% was like other engineering, etc.
Yeah,
And we didn't really prioritize the sales kind of use case enough at that time. So I think that like all our customers are using us for sales and support. So I think there's lots we can do there. So I think we'll still be in like customer facing roles for the next 3 to 5 years, but really just building like that AI coach, as I said, that can augment every rep to be the best they can be. And then also just making the lives easier for sales managers, enablement people, L&D, whoever kind of owns enablement in
yeah.
those orgs. So yeah, that's kind of how I see it right
That's the
now. Anyway,
plan.
that's the
Very
plan.
good.
Yeah.
And in terms of then gaining investment, are you letting that kind of happen organically? You have a network you've raised before. Are you out there kind of chasing it constantly? What does that look like?
Yeah, so it's actually been interesting. Like we raised like 1.5 million pre-seed, and we announced that back in July this year. So we have like lots of funding. Um, Actually, our runway is expanding, which is even more exciting. So we've had like we kind of set ourselves a goal since July of 30% month on month growth, and we've had 50% month on month growth the last three
Brilliant.
months. And we just closed a very big contract today that I can't let you know about, but maybe you're a good luck charm there.
Come on.
And Yeah, so I think yeah, that kind of stuff hopefully will look after itself. I think we're pushing to like give ourselves optionality there, like whether it's going to get to profitability with the team of five we have now, whether it's to raise another round. Um, but yeah, right now it's just really closing revenue, and then I
Yeah.
think that will look after itself. Hopefully.
Very good. You've been around a lot of entrepreneurs, early stage founders. You've kind of listed a number of characteristics you have yourself. Would you say that there's 2 to 3 characteristics you see in every successful entrepreneur?
I think like number one is definitely grit,
Yeah.
and just being able to go through shit basically and come out the other side. I think that's something that kind of tolerance to pain and setback is a big one for entrepreneurs. So that's something that I see in a lot of people that think they see all these things that's like overnight successes that take 10 years. Big
Yeah.
believer in that. I'd say that's the big one, and then just being curious as well is another common trend where, I mean, you kind of curious to learn, get better, learn from customers, etc., and not thinking you have all the answers because I definitely.
Yeah. Is there anything you learned in your career that you wish you actually learned earlier in your career? Is there anything that you're like, geez, I wish I had learned that, 8 years ago as opposed to 4 years ago?
Um, I think one thing, it's not really like a learning per se. It's an investment that I wish I'd made earlier. Like, um, not necessarily a regret, but one thing now is like you can see how important like content is for companies, and how having like every successful company nowadays has a really strong content strategy.
Yeah.
I think when I look back, I used to get slagged in college that I had like a LinkedIn account and was like really active on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
but like didn't actually like I should have leveraged it more at the time where like before you could only have 100 connection requests a week. Actually, I was really meticulous being like, oh, I don't know that person, better not accept them. Like,
Yeah.
wish I'd like blasted everyone, come out the other side of college with like 100,000 connections on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
and then just like actually pushed out content, especially during GradGuide. I see all these TikTok people now where it's like giving sales advice to BDOs. I was
Yeah.
like, we were doing all that. It's like we definitely should have like rather than trying to make funny memes on TikTok to get virality, we should have just been actually giving advice on TikTok and LinkedIn and all these different channels and build a bit of a following there. Because I think that if you have that distribution, it just makes it so much easier. I think the hardest part really um with like setting up any kind of startup nowadays is less so like on the product front. Like a lot of that has been commoditized, how people build products and how quickly they can build products. But like the distribution, that is the kind of the moat and the defense, like the defensibility. Like if
Yeah.
you look at there's so many companies that their founders, if you look at their LinkedIn or Twitter, they have massive followings, and then they go again and you're like, how do they repeat it so quickly? And it's just because they've just access to a wide customer base or investor base like from day dot.
Yeah.
I think that's something that I look at and be like, geez, like why did I not do that?
Yeah.
Because yeah, I think if you have a big following online now.
Oh, it makes such a huge difference. And I love the content these days on LinkedIn that's even seems to be, well, I think our generation, like transparent content.
Yeah.
Like, I guess shout out to like Lennox Academy, where they're posting how they're kind of building on their MRR and what's gone right and what's gone wrong. And they're just being so transparent that it makes founders and owners of company feel a bit more maybe relaxed, that you're like, okay, it's not just me who doesn't have all the answers and everyone else is just absolutely smashing it, you know?
Yeah, because even when we started, we shared, like, Ross, when he was leading channel site, was a customer at GradGuide, and we both started kind of our companies around the same time.
Yeah.
So we took out an office together to kind of, save costs there. But it was definitely something I copied. Like, he was just very, very structured in putting like scheduling content every single day. And I was just seeing his followers grow like by the thousands every few weeks. I was like, God, like, I need to get on this.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of go in and out of it. That's the only problem. Like, I'll get into like a good flow of like posting LinkedIn every day, and then I'm like, oh, I forgot because I didn't schedule or something like that.
Yeah.
Kind of have a bit of a running competition with Patrick, my co-founder now. He's kind of posting day in the life in San Francisco on Twitter every day. I'm trying to do something similar on LinkedIn. I'm going to try to do some video content as well. Just not being afraid to make a fool out of myself, because I'll do anything for leads, basically.
Yeah, exactly, which you should. And I think it's obviously, you know, posting content is probably very encouraged in the US, but maybe it's an Irish thing, you know, yourself. Like, if you're posting too much and you just have friends or whatever, just kind of like, who does this guy think he is? It is a bit of an Irish thing, isn't it? So
tall poppy syndrome.
Yeah, exactly. So you need to put yourself out there and just be consistent with it.
Yeah.
Last question, in terms of, well, GradGuide was huge around mentorship. Is there anyone that has been a massive mentor to you?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think from Intercom, my old director and VP in there, Stan Mazuras, who's since gone on to like head up GTM in Europe for Lattice. He was our first angel investor, and he's always been someone that I lean on heavily. Met him for a coffee last week. Super helpful. Would always give advice, WhatsApp, etc. Paul Lynch, the CEO of Chargify, I'm speaking to him tomorrow. I spoke to him last Wednesday. He's always someone I like to stay in contact with. I think really like where they're super helpful is like on the sales front. Like, they're both sales leaders.
Yeah. And
I think a lot of times I can get in my head too much about overcomplicating things. And like, when you actually just like get an outside opinion where they're like, just do that, and they're like, okay, grand. Because I get into like, analysis paralysis of how best to kind of close more deals or like open up more deals, etc. And they're like, just double down on what's working, or like try this. And so, yeah, they've been super helpful.
Okay. And do you have people who are maybe where you were a couple of years ago asking you for advice or mentorship, or is that something you envision seeing yourself doing in the future? Maybe being an advisor or sitting on more boards. Is that something you see in the future?
Yeah, if people have me. No, I definitely do get a few outreaches on LinkedIn. Now, I should get better at replying to everyone, but kind of my inbox can get quite full, especially with all the outreach I'm trying to do myself, selling to other people. But no, there's definitely like grads that reach out and like ask about landing their first job or wanting internships in place and stuff like that. So I try to do my best to try to carve out some time to do that when I can. Yeah, definitely could do a lot more.
Yeah, no, it seems like, especially in Ireland, there seems to be a good community around tech, around entrepreneurship and leaning on each other. So let's hope that continues to improve. But Mark, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Finally got you on. Yeah. And we look forward to the future and seeing where Solidroad goes. So thanks again.